We're good to go, are we, Alex? In which case, cool. So anyway, so I guess it's on me then to say welcome to, I think it's the 12th meeting of the Entrepreneurs Club, having a quick look back over them. And it's kind of good to see a lot of familiar faces, and also it's always good to see some new faces too. And for the new faces, I guess it's probably worth just having a quick kind of recap of what Entrepreneurs Club's about. Alex, Victoria and I put it together really to create an opportunity for kind of business owners to network, an opportunity for business owners to learn, an opportunity for business owners to support each other. And if as part of that they do a bit of business, that's great as well. The first few of these we did hold in person in the centre of town, and we're hoping to get the chance to do that again in the not too distant future. If nothing else, because all of my team are missing the quiches that used to be laid on as part of the lunch there, which used to go down the store. We've been online, of course, for the last kind of year. And one of the great things about that, of course, it does allow people from further afield to attend. So we have a lot of people from around the UK. I think the furthest afield we've had is someone from Saudi on a couple of the calls. But it did start as a Liverpool Entrepreneurs Club. And I guess today we will have a bit of a Liverpool theme in that our guest today is Bill Addy, the chairman of the Liverpool Business Improvement District. He also is mostly from the blurb, and we'll talk about later, has had lots of other roles as well. But it'd be great to hear some of Bill's thoughts later on the future of kind of Liverpool City Centre. But of course, many of those themes will be the same for towns and cities across the UK and even in Saudi, over kind of will we return to the office, and what will High Street look like, and the impact this will all have on other businesses based in city centres, relying their trade for office workers and shoppers and shop workers. But the format for today basically is that we'll start in a minute or so. We're going to go into some networking groups to give people a chance to kind of meet and chat for 10 minutes. You'll be allocated randomly to a room that'll be for 10 minutes. We'll then come back here where Victoria will introduce Bill kind of fully, and Bill will talk for about 30 minutes with a Q&A. After that, we'll have another opportunity to network for about 10 minutes, and then we'll all come back together just for a close at the end. And the idea is we'll be all done by 3:15 p.m. So you can kind of set your alarm. We'll be done by then, I promise. We are recording the meeting. We're not recording the networking bits, but in terms of kind of Bill's talk and Q&A, we're recording that so you can watch it later on YouTube as well if you miss anything, but also anyone you know who couldn't make it would love to just kind of see what it was all about. It'll be on YouTube by tomorrow. So without further ado, Alex is the technical geek for the day. So Alex is going to press a button and put you into a room for 10 minutes where you can network with other business owners. There'll be a kind of a warning on the screen about 60 seconds before the end. Then we'll bring you back here where Vic will be in charge to introduce Bill Addy. So see you in a bit.
Okay, I think everybody's back. So Vic, over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to see so many familiar faces. I'm delighted today to introduce Bill, who is, for many of you, if you do know him, is the CEO of the Liverpool Bid. That's probably not really enough to say about Bill. So I'm going to hand over to Bill to introduce, just to tell you, because he does do a lot of things within the city. Bill, if I can hand over for you to introduce yourself, and then my sort of first question would be about, well, obviously this third lockdown that we unfortunately entered into, what impact that has had on Liverpool, in particular retail and hospitality, and probably not just this third lockdown, sort of the last 12 months, what that impact looks like.
Great, thanks Vic, and thank you for inviting me today. So as Vic introduced me, I'm Chief Executive of the Liverpool Business Improvement District company, Liverpool Bid. So that's a big mouthful. What do we do? So Liverpool Bid company operates 2 business improvement districts in the centre of Liverpool. The Retail and Leisure, which was the first one that was established in 2005, and the Commercial District. And the business improvement districts are instigated by business using something called the Business Improvement District Act of 2004, which effectively allows businesses to come together, agree on a business plan and a strategy, put that out to ballot, and once that goes to ballot, every business within that specific area pays a small levy. So effectively, it's a private sector tax raising instrument which allows businesses to raise tax off other businesses and to spend it for the benefit of those businesses. In a nutshell, that's what a business improvement district is. In Liverpool, as I say, we have two, which cover the commercial district and the retail and leisure. And we have been delivering in the city since 2005, roughly at about £1.5 million a year in terms of income that comes in through those bids at this moment in time. Bids are voted for every 5 years, so that's another thing that we perhaps will come on, because we're about to go into a renewal ballot, so you may hear quite a bit about that over recent weeks. But in terms of business improvement districts around the UK, as I say, I'm Chief Executive of Liverpool, but I also am chair of something called the BID Foundation, which is a member of an organisation for business improvement districts, operated in conjunction with the Institute of Place Management. And we have currently 80 members within that of the 360 business improvement districts that there are in the UK. So we have business improvement districts everywhere from the north of Scotland, Aberdeen, through into Cornwall, across into Northern Ireland. And in fact, if you looked overseas, this whole model came out of North America. In fact, the first one was in Toronto, in a business district 50 years ago in Toronto. But now business improvement district business associations run right across those. I've been doing this job for for exactly 8 years, coming just past. Before I'd taken on the job, my background is construction and property. So I still have a directorship of a couple of small construction companies that we are building social housing. So I'm still busy in that sector. But business improvement districts is where my core activity are, and quite fascinate me. If you want to talk about the other things through that, I also chair the visitor economy panel for Liverpool. And again, bringing all the visitor economy businesses into Liverpool, because Vic, you asked the question of what's the impact of COVID being on the city. Well, if you think about the visitor economy for Liverpool, the Liverpool City region, in the city region in 2019, it was £4.9 billion and about 58,000 jobs. If you imagine what happened on March the 17th last year, when Boris told everybody not to go to a pub or a restaurant, and then what happened on March the 23rd when he told those pubs and restaurants and hotels, bars, all of those places to close, it switched off the supply chain to our visitor economy. In the city alone, that's £3.3 billion, £248 million worth of business rates that come to the city through business rates through the visitor economy. So all of that was switched off. We had a small portion between June the 15th and late October when non-essential retail were able to open. And then from July the 4th again through to late October when retail, hospitality were able to open. But all of those sectors opened using, obviously opened under conditions of social distancing. So if you went into a shop, you had to queue outside because they had to reduce the numbers inside the shop. Once you went inside, you had to, it didn't start that way, but it does now, you had to wear face covering. So their businesses were impacted significantly. And as we know what happened with restaurants, again, business impacted because they couldn't get the covers in place. So it's been a significant seismic impact on the economy, particularly for hospitality, retail and leisure. And that's why we see government support in those sectors has been in place very quickly and is still continuing and will need to be in place for some time.
Absolutely. So I suppose that brings me on to the next question really, Bill, in relation to the roadmap out of where we are now. And I think we were all, I know there was a bit of sigh of relief when Boris told us about this roadmap. And I know I have seen in my field from a HR perspective, that people are starting to feel a lot more confident again, and making some decisions because they can see, hopefully by June we will be back to some level of normality. So the next question was really, what are the BID doing in conjunction with Liverpool City Council to help? I think everyone on the call wants to know really, how are we going to, as a city, bounce back from this?
Yeah. Well, as you would imagine, we're spending a lot of time working with the various partner agencies in the city at the moment. So the first thing we need to understand is the dates that we've got for the various steps. Obviously, we're in just the first phase of step 1 at the moment, March the 8th, so that's fine. March the 29th is when we can get back with the rule of 6 outdoors. And then April the 12th is the significant step 2, when we know that non-essential retail was open, and then hospitality businesses can provide services outdoor without serving a Scotch egg. So if you want to go and have a drink in a pub, as long as you can sit outside and get table service, you'll be able to get a drink, and there's no curfew. So no Scotch eggs, no curfews. Then May the 17th is when hospitality, you'll be able to go indoors, and then obviously June the 21st is when everything opens. Now, first question is, when will we know when those dates are locked in? And at the moment, we're being told about 2 weeks beforehand. It's about following the trends, which is why I sit on the Health Protection Board. So you can see what's the infection rate, what's hospitalization, what's the level of vaccination, are the key issues that need to be looked at. But one of the concerns we have locally is actually what information do we give to business? What's the correct guidance for business? Because when you open up for outdoor hospitality in April, who does that apply to? And there's a complete disconnect at the moment between what governments say at a high level and what our local authorities are saying at an operational level. So that Robert Jenrick, I don't know whoever saw, who's the Minister of Housing, Communities and Local Governments, issued a letter to all local authorities. Effectively, he said, don't let red tape get in the way of a great British summer. Please allow businesses to be as flexible as possible. That's great, but then when you talk to the City Council, licensing will say, well, that's not as simple as Robert Jenrick makes it. So that's where there's a disconnect. How do we remove that disconnect? I'm sitting on a national group at the moment, which is through Bays, which is about how we're opening retail, and we're asking those questions at a national level. And getting the response from PHE nationally and from government nationally that we can provide to our retailers, so that well in advance of April the 12th, they will know exactly what the conditions will have to be when they open, what those queuing conditions will be like, what the social distancing will be like in terms, can changing rooms be available again? I know when everybody wants to get back into shops, what will the shop experience be like? We're trying to get the guidance through to the retailers so the retailers can provide that information through, because it's interesting, actually, if you think about it, just like the schools, when they went back on Monday, had to take down all the Christmas decorations. The retailers are having to think about de-Christmasing and actually getting ready for Easter, although Easter will have already been. So it's not an easy thing just to open the door again and go back into a shop. And that's part of the work that's happening. So locally, about getting that information through to the businesses, we're doing that in a number of ways. We have a weekly recovery meeting with the City Council and the relevant parties. I'm working very closely with Liverpool One on exactly that same thing. So getting the correct information to business at the right time so they can interpret it and they can reopen correctly. And one of the big successes we had in Liverpool last year, which was recognised across the country, and in fact government were very excited about what we did in Liverpool, was the Liverpool Without Walls initiative. If you remember Liverpool Without Walls, who didn't sit in Castle Street and have a beer last year? I know, Vic, you never left Castle Street for most. And Bold Street as well. All of that stuff we did was part of the Liverpool Without Walls scheme. So it allowed businesses to increase, restaurants increase their covers by about 3,000 last summer. It was about £9 million additional boost to the economy. That's going to be happening now again from April the 12th, there'll be a new version of Liverpool Without Walls. So we're working on getting Bold Street reopened and Castle Street. We're also working on those two streets being long-term closed. But we're also looking at expanding the area of Liverpool Without Walls outside of the city centre, up into Hope Street. So you'll be able to sit outside the quarter, 60 Hope Street. So areas like that, and actually create that continental feel that came in the summer. I mean, we know at the moment you look out over the river, it's pouring with rain, but by the summer, it's going to be great to be able to do that. We need to be able to enable businesses to do that. So that's where the bid is at the moment, in the centre of providing that. Well, obviously with the Liverpool Without Walls, we provide practical support to our levy payers in physically allowing them access onto the streets using some of the technical permissions that we have in place.
Bill, that was actually my next question, because as you know, I thought that was a fantastic initiative last year. So I'm really excited to hear that is happening, and obviously.
And especially this year, Vic, there's no curfew, so you can stay out all night.
Just need to find somewhere to put the children. It sounds amazing. And Bill, what's your thoughts on what sort of retail and hospitality will look like? Because I think, you know, in the press, we've obviously seen lots around some businesses that have closed. And I know there is that fear that when you sort of do go back into any city now, that it's going to look quite different. What's your thoughts on that?
One of the things we've got to do to encourage people back into the city is to really show that the city is safe and welcoming to reopen. So clean, fresh, tidy, signage, all of that will look, well, it looks the same. I mean, the key about Liverpool is it's a great city we all know and love. So the great shopping streets, Church Street, Bold Street, Lord Street, Liverpool One, will still look the same. But there is a lot of work being done on cleaning it, because as you can imagine, through the lockdown, there's not been a lot of traffic. It's probably some of the antisocial behaviour that has been prevalent in the city centre that we're trying to remove and get it clean and fresh and ready when people come back, because that provides reassurance to people to come back safely. And that was last summer. We had the be kind, be patient, be responsible. Do you know the be a Scouser about supporting each other and being kind, and all of that type of messaging will come out. But I suppose you'll also think about what's happened in the city centre in terms of significant businesses that are ceasing trading. Yeah. So we know we've lost Debenhams. Debenhams, I understand from Liverpool One, will be reopened from April the 12th, but just for about 6 weeks as it trades out what stock's left there. So I know some of the queues that were in place last time with Debenhams will still be there, but I can't imagine there's a lot of stock left in there. But they will trade out. And then from the I know Liverpool One have a number of very positive plans about how they're going to repurpose that building, because Debenhams is owned by Liverpool One. Topshop is closed, stripped out and bare. Very sad for that. But again, it's also owned by Liverpool One, and they are in discussions with a new tenant to come into there. The other change you'll notice on Church Street is that Next have now relocated. So the old Next on Church Street is now, well, it's got Harris fencing and skips outside as it's being stripped down, because Next have moved to Forever 21. Right. So Forever 21 is now rebranded. It's the Next store, which is good that they continue that investment. Mm-hmm. So Church Street will see some of those gaps, but you will also see some great new businesses coming into the city, particularly in hospitality and leisure. Has everybody heard about GPO, which is the General Produce Organization, I think? But actually, it's GPO. It's a play on words because it's the old post office on Victoria Street. It's going to be a big food court. It's a big news for the Met Quarter. Matt Bigland has brought his vision from Sheffield. He owns and operates the Cutlery Works together with his wife, and they're bringing the food hall to Victoria Street. So that will be open from the end of May, and that'll be a great place if you want to go for a night out from the commercial district. You'll be able to go into there, so that's going to be good. Fat Hippo on Bold Street, again, if you like burgers, I know you don't, Vic, but Fat Hippo is coming down from the northeast, and Manchester, opening up in Liverpool. So there's a number of other restaurants that are coming into Liverpool because they have absolute confidence that Liverpool will bounce back and will bounce back strongly. We saw last summer Liverpool's recovery. By the end of August, we'd got almost back to 2018 levels of footfall. We had over 1 million a week footfall, and our spend in Q3 and Q4 in Liverpool was very strong last year. If you want to see any of that data, you can get access to it off our Liverpool bid website. But Q3 and Q4 sales data was very good. So we do believe that with the correct management, with the correct encouragement and support for businesses, that Liverpool's recovery will be strong.
Well, that's really encouraging to hear, Bill. And you've obviously sorted out my whole summer now, because I'm going to put Frank and the kids in Fat Hippo, and I'm going to go to the art school and sit outside.
Good. Into Signal Street.
Oh,
Because there are plans, can't tell anyone else, but the plans to try and close Signal Street so Paul can have an outdoor offer as well.
oh, amazing. Oh no, that sounds really good. So I've noticed whilst we've been talking, we've got some questions coming through. So I'm just going to jump to some of the questions from the audience. So Alex has asked the question, he'd be interested to hear more about Bill's thoughts on the practical advantages that Liverpool being named a free port could bring to the city.
Okay, thanks for that one. I think the importance with that is the fact that they've recognised the £400 million investment that Peel put into Liverpool too. So I think from an economical point of view, we've already seen the numbers in terms of GVA, and forgive me because it's gone out of my mind, but the GVA numbers in terms of the increase because of Freeport activity. So I see the fact that we'll get other businesses. Is it 14,000? It is 14,000 additional jobs that are prospected because of the Freeport. So it's all of the practical advantages, obviously level of significant level of investment coming into the city. One of the problems we've had in Liverpool is we've had a lot of local investment, but we've not had a lot of international investment. And I think the Freeport will certainly be the signal for that. And so that West Coast connectivity, because of the fact we haven't really talked about Brexit, because Brexit has happened. We know a lot of difficulties with it, but hopefully there will be a lot of advantages once we get traffic flowing around the world. So I think it's a great boost for the city. It's how we connect it all into all of the other areas that the city region are planning. Obviously, Steve Rotherham announced yesterday the various shovel-ready projects that he talks about. So significant. I mean, significance for the city region cannot be understated. Sorry, that was a bit of a waffle, Alex, but hopefully there was enough in there. Brilliant.
Thanks, Bill. Just having a look at the other questions that you've got here. So we've got one from Sean. With the news that the government have given the go ahead for cruises around the British Isles from May, are the big company and the City Council working with the cruise industry to ensure the city attracts as many cruise visitors as possible? Yeah, I mean, the cruise industry and Liverpool's position within that cruise industry was one of the bright spots of the last 10 years. And had we not had a COVID, we would have seen over 125 cruise dockings in Liverpool this year. We know that the cruise industry is a massive industry, significant investment, but the cruise industry itself has been inoperable for a year. So we are doing everything we can to get cruises back into Liverpool. The cruise terminal itself is still on the stocks, and it's delayed by a year. So it's probably 2023 before that cruise terminal will be down on Prince's Docks. But be rest assured that we're doing everything we can to support cruise industry coming into the city. And not only when the cruises come into the city, to get them to stay in the city. One of the things that will happen as cruises start to come back is that potentially
the cruise, I mean, if anybody's been on a cruise, generally what happens when the cruisers turn in, they jump off the ship, they get collected by coaches and get taken out of the port on trips. One of the things we like to do in Liverpool is allow people to stay in the city centre. And that's what people like about Liverpool, because they can walk into the city centre very quickly. So there's a lot of work being done. Angie Redhead and the team at the Cruise Liverpool are working very, very hard, continuing the discussion, continuing the connections with the cruise industry.
Brilliant, great, exciting. We have a question from Aaron. How do you think people's expectations around the experience of shopping in the city centre have changed over the last year, and balancing a great customer experience with personal and collective safety?
I think people will be nervous going back in. Most of us have only been shopping in supermarkets. I don't know about you, but you go in a supermarket, you wouldn't think there was a pandemic on, apart from people wearing face coverings, because nobody follows social distancing rules. But I think that's the key thing, that what we have to do is to show people that they can come back in safely. We have great retail experience, and our customer service levels are very high in Liverpool. We carry out an annual customer survey, the Mystery Shopping Survey, which looks at customer service across a range of our businesses, from those big retailers through to small independents. And customer service has been improving year on year. We switched that from customer service to look at COVID safety. And one of the measures we found, actually, excuse me, that people found their customer experience a good one in Liverpool compared to other cities, because retailers have invested significantly in COVID safety. So just the things that when you get welcomed correctly, there's sufficient signage in the business, there's sufficient space in the business, there is sufficient points where you can get hand sanitizer, everything's touch only, so no cash transactions. And all of those aims are to encourage people to come in and shop safely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we obviously, you touched upon it earlier as well. I was thinking some of my experiences in the middle of sort of some of the lockdown, and it's the space, isn't it? It's the queues, and that can be the challenge. I know there was one shop in particular, it was only small, really big queue, and in the end I got frustrated what the purchase I wanted to buy, and I went and bought it online outside the shop, and then I felt guilty for doing that, because obviously I wanted to sort of go into the shop and have the experience. But hopefully if they can sort of minimize those queues, then I'll certainly be there. I just don't think you can beat that shopping experience, can you, as well, you know?
Because we have in Liverpool, we have one particular major store which has no online experience. So that was the one store that people were queuing, and in fact they opened up early. That they had Primark, if anybody hasn't guessed, which is
Primani.
Yeah, actually, it's a brilliant store. And Liverpool was their number one shop. That was their number one retailer in the country. And in fact, we find with a number of our key stores that the Liverpool store trades better than other stores, other comparable stores across the UK. But Primark, they were queuing at 6 in the morning.
Wow.
To get into it on the opening day, and consistently had consistently had queues throughout the first lockdown, the first reopening period.
I must admit, obviously, you know, I've got a teenage daughter now, and I deliberately tried to avoid going near Primark because I didn't want the question. I know I was being hounded to sort of wait outside. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see. But there's obviously that frustration as well, isn't there? Because I think when online has been convenient in the current circumstance, but the amount of returns that people have had to send back, and it's just not the same, is it?
It was interesting actually that there was a big queue. In fact, Primark massive queue, but there's also a massive queue outside Zara in Liverpool, one on the first day of reopening. But everybody outside Zara had parcels that were taken back to change.
Yeah. So I gave up in the end. I just have sort of given away the things that didn't fit me because I thought I can't do it. Oh, so we've got couple more questions for you, Bill. This is sort of more of an idea, actually. This is from Paul, and he has said that just going back to Liverpool without walls, he said he seems to remember his time in Rome and other European cities. They had outside dining areas that were enclosed in plastic awnings, which allowed bars, restaurants to open out onto the street, providing life and light. So this could be a further way of expanding without walls.
It definitely is, and it's something we are working on at this moment in time. You probably remember Gino's just before Christmas. Obviously, that was a very expensive bespoke system, which we have been working with businesses to expand and be able to provide a more sustainable response to it. But from as simple as providing the ability for people to put awnings on, and they are working on that at the moment. In fact, I know Leaf have, we're amongst friends, aren't they? So I can tell that Leaf have already, will be doing that, particularly on Bold Street. So it's the availability of more space and making it more sustainable. And so we see a long-term shift. So it's not just a temporary measure, but becomes a long-term solution to a better use of space.
Yeah. Well, I dined in the space at Gino's over Christmas, and it was great. You know, I think the most important thing for me was it warm, and it absolutely was. But you know, it gives that ability even in the long term, doesn't it, for more covers at times like that as well, which is great.
So that's something that's being worked on to make it more sustainable. And actually, we will be announcing next week that there is some significant funding that the City Council have negotiated from the combined authority that will help us deliver some of that programme.
Amazing. Exciting. Thanks, Bill. John's asked a good question here, and obviously we've talked a lot around sort of hospitality and retail. So he's asked what your thoughts are about people returning to offices. Are the major city centre employers bringing people back? What sort of have you heard on the grapevine so far? And will they be downsizing their offices? And gosh, John, there's a lot of questions here for an accountant. And will there be a lot of empty space and an impact on future building developments?
Yeah. My thoughts on coming back to the office. Well, I'm working back in an office. We were just about to bring people back into the office in September before the government announced the second lockdown. So we will try and do everything we can to encourage people to come back safely into offices, because the city is an ecosystem. So we need people in offices so that we can open up the coffee bars, and we can open up restaurants, and we can open up the shops, and we can get people into it. Now, I appreciate that working from home is also has been financially beneficial for people because they've had no commute. So the working time the working home time is improved because they've only got that 5-minute commute. But the other concern I've got, it's not about working from home, it's living at work. And do people actually have a break between work and home life? Or do you think, well, okay, I can just finish an email, or I'll just nip back into the office and finish something off. So there's a lot of issues around people's mental health, getting people out of the home environment and into an office environment. I think some of the other things that we're missing out is the creativity that happens when you share in an office, when you're working with people in an office, that you can get that creativity. And the other big thing that we miss out on, we're networking over Zoom now. But you remember those networking that used to happen by chance when you were in a coffee bar, or when you were walking along Castle Street or Old Hull Street, or you bumped into somebody in the sandwich shop that preempted something? Well, we're missing all of that connectivity and interconnectivity between business and between people. Because as people, we're human beings, we need interaction. And it's difficult to get that interaction when we're just looking at a computer screen. And so I think we should encourage people to come back into work safely. I think another important aspect of work is that a business, within a business growth, it's difficult to develop that It's difficult to develop staff when they're working from home. So lots of reasons why we should come back to work. Will that happen? Yeah, I think it will. I know people said it's the demise of the office. I don't see that. I don't see it as the demise of the office. It's interesting that the building we're in here, St. Nicholas House, there's been 3 lettings of St. Nicholas House and there's very little space left. We undertook an exercise just last year for the bid company to find a new floor, 2,500 square feet in the city of Liverpool. It was difficult to find anywhere because there's very little available office space in the centre of Liverpool. What we've lost to residential conversion has impacted on it. So I will still see office development. I think what we will see, and which is, I think is a good initiative, will be flexible working. So we've had flexi hours, but actually a flexible workforce that perhaps will decide one day we've got a project, I can work on this, I'll stay at home, or I've got childcare, I can stay at home. And so I think employers need to recognise that, and those if you want to retain staff, perhaps, and obviously from HR business, they're going to be interested to see how you document this in the contract. But if you want to retain staff, it's how you operate as a responsible employer and how you are flexible in that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, Bill, and obviously just to add to that, I chair a national HR directors forum for BEMA, and it was very interesting the sort of the thought process that's gone around for all different sorts of size businesses. And I think sort of like lockdown 1, lockdown 2, there was lots of talk of downsizing and offices closing. And very recently, in the last month, when I've spoken to that group of HR directors, exactly what you've just described, Bill, I think people's opinion has really changed to think, well, no, this doesn't completely work. You know, there is challenges around communication, and I think this sort of hybrid model is what we're going to see moving forward, where people do, you know, embrace flexible working that maybe they should have done a long time ago, but we still have that office presence, which is good for the city. I'm just conscious of time now, which has been fantastic. So I'm just going to finish on just one final question, Bill, for you, just in relation to the bid. So obviously the bid has had massive successes so far in the commercial and retail district, and I understand that there is maybe the intention to expand upon that. Maybe if you just wanted to tell us a little bit.
I'll come back. Can I just answer Paul's question though? Paul's raised the issue about Airbnb. Airbnb is a great product. Obviously, in those days when we used to travel to European cities and North American cities using Airbnb products, perfect. And we know that there's a lot of Airbnb product in Liverpool. One of the things I'd like to ask Paul though is it really about how do we connect Airbnb into the wider visitor economy, and what's Airbnb's response to providing support in terms of paying for what happens around destination marketing? Because there is a concern that Airbnb operators actually don't contribute to so in particular, I mean, if we expand the business improvement district, we wouldn't pick up Airbnb, whereas across in North America, Airbnb actually pay to local tourism boards and district managers. So that's something for us to continue to, so it'd be great to pick up that conversation with you, Paul. Perhaps offline if you can connect us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So just finishing up that question. Thanks, Paul. Business improvement districts exists to benefit the businesses that they represent. So that's why we have 360 of them in the UK. And interestingly enough, the business improvement districts that have been going to ballot during lockdown are having very good turnout and very high response rates. That where there's an effective business improvement district that connects properly with its businesses want them to continue. So for a business in Liverpool, you will pay 1.6% of your rateable value into the business. So that's every year you pay that for 5 years. But as opposed to business rates, you actually get, as a business, you get a say in delivering what services the business improvement district delivers. We're looking at how we strengthen that and how we actually bring business together better in the city and give business a better voice and actually make it collaborative. So that's why we believe the business improvement is the right model. That's why we're in our 4th term in retail and leisure. We're at the end of our 2nd term in commercial and moving to a 3rd term. One of the things we want to do is to offer that opportunity for other areas. So we are actually in process of planning an expanded bid, which will include the waterfront, so from the Arena Convention Centre through to Prince's Dock. It will take the commercial district through St George's Quarter, so museums, and then pick up the Knowledge Quarter as well. At the moment, we're not because retail and leisure is out of this, has a different cycle. So there's another 2 years of the retail and leisure bid. So we'll be going for that expanded city bid. We're about to launch it. We'll be launching it on April the 14th with a ballot going out to all those levy payers, of which there will be 517 hereditaments. A hereditament is a liability to pay business rates. 517 of them, which will generate for us about 1.5 million, which will increase our income to about 2.3 million, which will enable us to deliver better services and a better connectivity of private business with the city. And that's a model that I believe is sustainable. I believe will deliver real value for the city. And we're going to put it to the vote for 28 days over April and May. So you'll hear a lot of it, but 28th of April is the ballot day. That's the final day of the ballot. And 1st of June, we will start the new bid.
Fantastic, brilliant. That's great news, Bill. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I found that really extremely
Thank you for inviting me.
Positive as well, and I can't wait to just all be back together again. And I'll see you, no doubt, for breakfast on a Sunday, Bill.
That's great. I've got another one to go to in 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, Bill. Well, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
See you. Bye.
So if I hand back over to Alex, obviously the technical whiz, so if you want to put everybody back in a breakout room, so just give you the opportunity to network, and then we'll come back into the main room again, and John will finish.
Yep, so the rooms should be open. If you just accept those, then it'll put you into the rooms accordingly. Thanks very much. Over to you, John.
Cool. Well, welcome back, everyone. I like that Alex says just before everyone returns, he says, "I'm going to let them out," which hopefully didn't feel like that, and you weren't going to let me out. Enough of this networking. But anyway, I hope everyone agrees that's a really interesting session from Bill, and kind of really positive as well over some of the plans for Liverpool and for kind of business more generally over the coming months as they let us out, and we hopefully head back towards normal. And certainly, we've just been chatting amongst ourselves again. I think we're all just looking forward to how to, whether it's outside or in, but to sit outside in town with, a drink and some food, with hopefully better weather than we've got today. But as the sun hits, that'll be absolutely great. So anyway, just want to thank you all for coming along today. Like I say, the actual the session has been recorded, or certainly kind of the talk and the Q&A to be on YouTube. If you want to watch anything back of Bill's, if anyone wants to get in touch, please feel free to do so. We will be sending an email around afterwards as well to kind of all the attendees with the details on. And aside from that, obviously, we kind of look forward to seeing you at an Entrepreneurs Club event in the future. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.